My name is Bill Matsakudis, and welcome to tonight's discussion on the future of the land right outside the window here, County Plaza. I have the honor of serving as the chairperson of the Hudson County Affordable Housing Task Force and as a general counsel for the Hudson County Improvement Authority that's spearheading the initiative to bring affordable housing to 4 county-owned parcels, including County Plaza that we're going to talk about tonight. And that initiative to develop affordable housing on county-owned land is the initiative of the gentleman to my left, County Executive Craig Guy, who's going to kick off the meeting tonight and say a few words to get us started.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the folks that are here. This is just a series of numerous meetings that we're having with the community to talk about some of the projects of building more affordable housing in Hudson County, and specifically right outside this door here. You know, all along in my campaign and in my administration, I think I've heard it 1,000 times, 10,000 times, that we have to make Hudson County more affordable. And it's my obligation to make Hudson County more affordable. So since we've taken office, we have fast-tracked some of these initiatives to build just that, more affordable workforce social housing, which I think once Bill Matsakudis and his team here presents to you, I'm hoping you're going to like the plan. Now, we're also here to listen to suggestions. The plan that we have here is just that, a plan. Right? It's not a fait accompli. It's not done, and we're presenting it to you that it's done, and we're coming in tomorrow. It's a plan that is open for discussion. I'm very excited about getting it moved. This will be one of the first projects we start, and I hope to start it this coming year. But we also want to hear from you. We also want to hear from the community and the people that live here, and we want to keep the people that are living here. So I think what you'll see tonight is a plan that please ask any questions, give us any complaints, and when this session is over, you'll have an opportunity to look at some of the plans, and the gentleman up here will discuss it in further. But I have several other commitments tonight, but I wanted to make sure that I was here first to offer you the opportunity to know that the input that the community gives me and gives our team is important. So we offer the opportunity, and I thank you for coming.
Thanks, Executive.
So, Bill?
Thank you very much. All right. So I'll get this started, and then I'm going to turn it over. I think to be careful, maybe a little bit, to Jay Valgora to my right in a couple of minutes here, who I told you why I'm involved in this by virtue of being the general counsel for the Hudson County Improvement Authority and the chairperson of the Affordable Housing Task Force. And the Hudson County Improvement Authority has contracted with a group of professionals led by Jay Valgora to help develop the plan for the development here. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. And Jay, I guess I'll do this now before we turn it over to you, but Jay is a licensed urban planner. He's a licensed architect. I've had the privilege of working with him in the past. He's got great vision and great design style, and he also has a great team that is here with him today. And we'll also be working with our former city planner on that team, Jeff Wenger, who's now in the private sector. So let's talk about this. You know, why are we doing this? We're doing this because, as the county executive said, there's a dire need for affordable housing in Hudson County because it's gotten really expensive to live here. And this is a county that is traditionally working class people. And as a consequence of, I would say almost we're a victim of our own success that this is such a desirable place to live. It's become so expensive to live here. For example, you see that Jersey City has got one of the highest rents in the country, that people have a hard time living here. And, you know, you have a substantial percentage of the population that are cost burden. approaching 50% of the people, cost burden. What does that mean? They're spending more than 30% of their income on housing. When we talk about affordable housing, I like to just break down some basics. What does that mean? Affordable housing. So we're talking about two different things there, basically, where you're capping housing, you're limiting certain housing to individuals and families of certain income brackets, and then you're capping the amount of money that they have to pay to live there. And that's typically done via a median income, where you look at where the median is, not necessarily the average of income. So to be affordable housing, you have to limit the people that can live there to incomes that are 80% of the area median income. And that would mean for a single individual in Hudson County, about $70,000. For a family of four, $100,000. And then within that, we have a few different brackets, right? Because some of that affordable housing will be for families that are making 80%, some for 50%, and some for as low as 30%. And that's, for a family of four, $38,000. And then you have to cap the amount of money that they spend on their housing at 30% of that income. So we are committed to providing affordable housing for across that spectrum of 80%, 50%, and 30%, because there's really a need for it. 20% of the people in Hudson County are making less than $35,000 a year. That's households, which is extraordinary, and those are people that are a lot of working families. Yet we have 20% of the population making $200,000 or more, and that diversity of income puts pressure on the housing market. So the market doesn't always provide what's needed, and we're stepping in to resolve that. Look, housing. We're going to talk about how much affordable housing will be here. I can tell you that we're committed to providing a substantial amount of affordable housing, but it's going to be housing for all. In other words, across all income brackets, with a substantial percentage of housing for families of modest means, but also market rate rents. And there's really a shortage of housing overall in this county. You can bring everyone in. We have just let them come on in. Yeah. Sorry about that. So, look, there's a housing shortage in the New York metropolitan area, right here in Jersey City. The Regional Plan Association estimates that there's going to be a shortage by 2032. Maybe as much as close to 40,000 units. And some people talk about Jersey City being so developed, and it's true, we are. But at the other side of the coin, we have less people living in Jersey City today, according to the 2020 census, than we did around the time my mom was born in Jersey City in 1930. So we're talking about building affordable housing on 4 county-owned plots of land in Jersey that happen to all be in Jersey City. They all happen to be in Ward C, and here they are on a map here. We've got one up in the Five Corners section. We've got one over by the courthouse. We've got one over in Bergen Square. And we got a big, massive one right out the window that's on the map here called County Plaza. Come on in. Come on in. How you doing? Good to see you. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Come on in. And here we are. There's the beautiful picture that our friends at Studio V put together where County Plaza is colored in. That's the land that we're looking at. That's owned by the county and the Hudson County Improvement Authority. And you can see the surrounding neighborhood. We've got all the residences here to the east of County Plaza that some people call the Colony. We got the Beacon, to the south, and so on. And here's another map of it. You can see that, and as you know, a lot of it is surface parking, and that is something that we do have to deal with. This building isn't going anywhere. This building is an important building. We have about 1,000 employees that work inside of County Plaza, and they park in these parking lots that surround this building. And they do a lot of important functions for the county, ranging from working on food stamps, welfare, Medicaid, the Board of Elections, the Department of Public Works, and so on. But the idea is that we don't need to we don't need to have everyone who's parking here parked spread out like that. And, really, surface parking is not a good use of land. Surface parking creates a lot of problems. It creates flooding. It creates a heat island effect that raises the temperatures, and we know, as of yesterday and the day before, what that could be like. So we can provide parking for the employees here on a fraction of the land by building something vertical for them, and at the same time then dedicating so much other land to more productive uses like housing and green space. And one of the reasons that we believe it's important to have mixed income here is multifold. One is that when you have market rate rents mixed in with capped affordable housing, it provides you with the revenue to pay off the debt that it's going to cost to build these buildings. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to provide us with the adequate revenue to provide top service management for it. When you have mixed income, you tend to provide for safer communities. You tend to draw in better amenities. And in the past, we've seen that when you've segregated people by income and try to concentrate poverty into one building, it's a failure. One of the things we need to do in order to develop these parking lots into more productive uses is to change the zoning. This picture here, this map, shows you County Plaza, and all these colors indicate the type of zoning that governs. It's a mishmash of antiquated zoning that governs this area now. Some of it's industrial. There's not a lot of industrial building going on right now in this neighborhood. Part of it over here is the Montgomery Street redevelopment plan that calls for 5-story buildings. We think that's antiquated. We think something more robust here preliminarily. But that's a redevelopment plan that was promulgated 50 years ago and by its own terms expired. The Jersey City government agrees. In 2021, they promulgated a master plan for the city, and they identified this land as a piece of land that needs to be redeveloped and that should have a redevelopment plan. Because it's very obvious, I think, to anyone that when you look at this land, we could do something better than what we're doing with it right now. One of the things that we looked at here is when we're considering, how much development can we have here? And one of the questions that we had to ask is, would people want to live here? And if you look at this screenshot right here, what we have are all the properties that have been developed with robust, pretty significant developments in the neighborhood that you can walk to in just a few minutes. And so, as NJ Biz said, McGinley Square, which is kind of this neighborhood, is really a very hot real estate market. I pivot and I show this when I talk about what we're going to do at County Plaza. Because those buildings, Montgomery Gardens, used to exist across the street. And to the right is an announcement when they were put up in like 1957. And Jersey City was so proud they brought in Adlai Stevenson, one of the leaders of the Democratic Party at the time, to announce with great fanfare that they were building this, but only to demolish it some decades later because by most people's standards it was a failure. And I think we have to take a look at the history and say that we're not going to replicate something like that. We've got to do something better. And, part of the reason for that failure, I think, was exclusively relegating the property to people of the lowest incomes and try to segregate them from the rest of society, putting them in really uninspired, not quality buildings and poor upkeep. So we're committed to doing something different here. We're committed to providing housing for all at County Plaza. Wealthy, middle class people who are in the lower income brackets, working class families, in buildings that people can be proud to live in, and in an area that we're going to make sure is kept up to the highest degree of quality going forward. So, having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Jay Valgora, who's going to tell you about some of the thoughts he's having about what could be here, and then we're going to solicit your input. So, Jay, here you go.
Thank you, Bill. And can you guys hear me okay? Are we good? Okay. So, Bill introduced me. I'm Jay Valgora. I'm an architect and a planner, and I'm going to try to show you some stuff, but I'm going to go a little bit quickly because I actually want to hear from you all too. And some of our folks are here, and we have some things even set up because this isn't really just to, talk at you. We would like to hear from you. And that's really important because, as Bill mentioned, we're at the beginning of a process. So a lot of times when folks come in like us, it's like, well, they're here to show you a scheme that they've already worked out, and we have not done that yet. We would rather come out to the community at the beginning of the process. We'd love to get your input. We're doing a series of these meetings, which will be happening over the next, several weeks and months. And you're at the beginning of it. So while we will show you some information and some materials, and we really welcome your feedback, we don't have anything that's fixed at this point, and you could have an impact on what we're going to do. And I hope you do, and I'd like to do all we can in order to hear from you and get information. So let me go into it a little bit. And I'm going to start by just showing you, before we design anything, we look at stuff. And what we wanted to look at were things in your town, in your neighborhoods. And so we started by looking at, what are open spaces? And I'm just going to touch on this briefly, but we looked at, what made great places in Jersey City. So, for example, we show Van Voorst Park. This is the historic plan. And we looked at, what were some of the things in there? Why is that a nice place? How does it create greenery? What is the sort of sense of enclosure? And how does it become a special place within a community? So these are just examples, and I'll show you in a minute how they could apply. And so we were really interested in, this is a beautiful, small, urban square that actually creates open space and green space. So we're here to talk about housing, but I was interested in both the history of these places. These are the historic photos of Van Voorst Park, for example. And here's what it's like today. These create kind of continuity within a neighborhood, a sense of place and authenticity. So just as there's a plaza outside here, we were thinking maybe we could create a series or one or two kind of green squares that become the focal point. Because as Bill said, we're not trying to just create housing. Housing is the goal. We want to create a community. We'd like to create a neighborhood. And we need things that will actually create a sense of place within it. So here's another one. Here's Hamilton Park. You guys know this, and it's another neighborhood here in Jersey City. It's different from this neighborhood, but it has this beautiful open green area. It has a central lawn and trees. It has some playgrounds and different components. So again, this becomes kind of the center of a community. And so we started to look at these, and these are historic photos of it, as well as pictures of what it looks like today. So it has different features. Later on, we're going to ask you, what kind of features would you like in residential buildings and retail and open space? Because we can start to plan some of those things into the design that we're just starting to work on. These are other examples. This is Sierra Green. So this one's a little unusual, but we said, can you create open space on top of parking? Because we have a parking garage, we have a parking lot here, and we are going to have to replace cars because there are people that are still parking here. So we're probably going to create garages and wrap them with housing and kind of put them below grade or wrapped with buildings so that they're kind of in the interior. But it's also possible to create beautiful open spaces that are integrated with infrastructure like parking. So these are just some different examples. So, I thought this was just a very pretty one where it took advantage of grade changes. It took advantage of putting the parking below. So this could be another solution. You probably know our sites. You can see them right out there are very sloped. There's a lot of topography here. So you can have an area where you could put parking below at one level, and then the neighborhood comes in a little bit higher. So for example, like where you have Mercer and Florence, they come in at two different elevations, like 20 feet. It's almost a two-story difference between the two. Or Montgomery, there are places where Cornelissen, goes under it, so there's like a difference in elevation there. And so that's just part of what this neighborhood is like. So we could actually kind of fold parking in underneath green space or wrapped around by housing. So that's why we show some of these examples. So I'm just going to show you some initial thoughts. And these are very, very early. But first, these are the sites. And the sites are all different. So as Bill said, we're in the County Plaza building, so it's very convenient because we can actually feel right where we are. And you guys know it's right here. I'm going to move it a little bit. Here, whoops, on the drawing. And it has this little plaza, so we're right in this space right here to kind of highlight it for you guys, right? And then these are the sites around it. So to the south is Site 1, and that's the parking lot, right? And so that's over to the side, over there, and that goes all the way over to Montgomery. And that's like this huge parking lot that extends right to Montgomery. So it's a big surface lot. Then you have Site 2, which is right across the street from us over here. And so this is also another parking lot. You can see it right there. There's a smaller kind of triangular Site 3. There's a little tighter site on the back 4. That's kind of up on the hill. There's a little park there. That's where the Palisades comes through. So there's a green area and a park there. And then one of the sites that's the hardest to figure out, I'll show it to you in 3D, is that Site 5. And that's up by that community some folks call the Island. And that's where you have the trains from the path. And that's kind of an industrial site, which is a little bit hard to get to. But the county owns that too. So we're trying to figure out, could we incorporate that into it? And could we create something there? And that's also built into the hillside, like the hill comes up on top of it. So these are the 5 sites, and it's complicated. They all surround this building we're in. And so we're thinking, how can we create a sense of place? I'm going to go back to those parks and images. And how can we create the housing? And how do we create the right scale of housing, right? Oops. And let's see. Oh, and that's not.
Yep,
oh,
you got
there
it.
we go. Okay, whoop, it just jumped ahead. Okay, so let me go back. I guess it's kind of lagging a little bit. Okay. All right, maybe I'll advance it manually. Yeah, it looks like it's lagging.
Better.
Okay, let's see if I can get this to go. So these are the sites.
It's not moving?
There. For some reason, it's kind of jumping and lagging, but let me try to take you through it. So this is the first option, okay? And in the first option, now you can start to see when I talk about these squares, it seems very abstract. But you can see down here, we thought, well, maybe where you have, Mercer coming down, and it's Florence on the other side. This is the parking lot, but maybe we could create a little square there. So it extends with Mercer is on this left side over here, like this. And then Florence is over here. And there's a grade change here, like I was saying. And this could be one of our little town squares. So this is one example. We showed a second one over here at Wayne Street. That comes along the edge of the county building, and it ties into Wayne Street down here. It's a pedestrian link because the street doesn't extend there. So that could be a second green square. And then the third one is really the plaza right here, which is that space right outside. But maybe we could open it up or take that fountain that maybe isn't being used or create some way to kind of activate it. So these become 3 little green spaces, 3 kind of public spaces, open spaces for everybody. And then we organize the buildings around them. And we can do different scaled buildings here, and I'll show them in 3D so you can start to see how we could create housing around these open spaces. So this is just one sketch, one initial idea, and I'll show you how we could develop that further. And then you can also see up above, I want to tie into that upper part, that goes up towards Journal Square. So that's kind of the Palisades, that green area where the kind of hill comes out of the ground, and you see a bunch of that greenery. There's those parks over there. So we thought maybe we could create a walkway, pedestrian walkway, that goes all the way up into Journal Square. And there are other proposed developments further up, and we're thinking that we could create kind of extensions and walkways and possibly even parking on that Site 5 built into the side of the hill, and maybe we could put a park on top of that. So these are some of our initial ideas, and I'll see, if this doesn't lag too much, how I can advance it. So here's a second option, and again, these are sketches. And instead of a bunch of little squares, we thought maybe we do one bigger one. And that one's here. So we did that along the edge of Cornellison, right? And it actually still has, Mercer coming into it here and extending through. And we created one larger square there that kind of organizes the whole site and creates one slightly bigger park instead of 2 smaller ones. So this is a second idea that we had. And we thought that that one could be kind of cool. And so here's the different sites. Here's the first scheme where you can see we're wrapping the little squares with it, like here is one, and here, and here. And we're wrapping it with pretty small scale buildings, but we can actually get a lot of housing in here. And then we did some smaller towers in between, and we could probably get about 700 units of housing in a whole series of different buildings and still have it be a very nice scale. And it's really smaller than a lot of the things around it. We could also do a little more housing. We could increase the scale a little bit. So part of our goal is to do something that creates a real sense of place. Here's option 2. We show one bigger square. We keep the housing around that square pretty small. And I did a few other towers. And again, they're still smaller than the ones at the Beacon. They're smaller than the ones at Journal Square. So this is a second option. So I'm just showing you some ideas. And again, we're not here to say there's one scheme, but I'm here more to show a way of thinking and ideas. And then I'd like to open it up for questions and so forth. But to finish, I can show you kind of a larger timeline as to how we want to do this. And then frankly, I'd be happy to come down and talk to you. I'd be happy to take questions from the live feed and to answer your questions. And then I would encourage you to go over and look at the sort of drawings that we put on the side. And we would ask you to, if you would, tell us your thoughts and take a look at it. Or even make some decisions, like we have stickers and things like that where you can choose what kind of features you'd like, or what kind of public elements, what kind of retail, what kind of park activities and amenities. So this is our next step. So on the timeline,
I think this timeline is, let me address this, because it's
Yeah,
kind of
you
like,
can
it
do
mixes
this,
in
Phil.
some of the stuff that's outside what you're doing. So just this sort of combines a few different elements of what we're trying to do out here on a calendar of when we can hopefully start to see something going vertical out here. So from a legal perspective, what we have to do is change that mishmash of zoning, and we're looking to promulgate what we're calling a redevelopment plan. And the first step in that is we have to have the city declare that this is an area in need of redevelopment, because it's really not being utilized in the appropriate way. And the city's council has authorized that study to be taken, and it's underway. We're hoping that within a month or so, or during the summer at some point in time, that the city will make that step and say it's an area in need of redevelopment. Simultaneously, Jay and Jeff Wenger over here, the planner, are doing two things that are very connected. Jay is going to be, with your input and his and different members of different communities within the area, putting together a master plan that will sort of lay out, as he was showing you in those images, the contours of the development, the contours of open space, the types of uses that we want to see here that are in addition to ancillary supportive of the housing, maybe some retail and such. And that will be reflected in a master plan, but also in a redevelopment plan, which is really a legal document. It's the zoning for the area that will be ultimately voted on by the Municipal Council of the City of Jersey City and the Planning Board. And we're hoping to have that process done come October, okay? Completed basically by then. Based upon what Jay comes up with via a master plan, we will take the first steps toward building the first one of these structures. And that is something that we're going to do in a way that's a little unique and innovative and different than most affordable housing initiatives that typically partner up with private developers. Here, we are focused on and dedicated to doing something that we're calling social housing. That is government financed, government owned, privately managed housing for all, as I said at the outset of this. And we're going to do that through a design build procurement, where once we get to the point where we know what the master plan for these sites will look like, we'll focus on one of the site, and we'll do a two-step process that we're going to tell the building community that we want to solicit input we want to solicit proposals from builders and architects to, in the first step, do a request for qualifications, get them through that process, and whoever makes the cut, then they'll submit a proposal for the ultimate design of that building, how much it will cost, et cetera, and then we'll award a contract to, the best respondent, hopefully at some point in the beginning of the second quarter, end of the first quarter of next year, or second quarter of next year, and then finish up the drawing so that in 2027 we can start seeing a building go up here. We don't want to waste time because there's an urgency to provide this housing, and so we're acting rapidly, but we're acting thoughtfully, and that's why we're here. So, having said that, we can maybe have some. If anybody wants to, are there any questions in the live feed or? Okay. Anybody have a question who wants to raise their hand here for a question before we go to the live feed? And then we're going to go over to the side and look at these and get some, have some conversations just face to face over there too. Anybody have any questions? Sorry. So we have a local celebrity here, Tori from Cafe Elise. He's looking to make sure that we can get him more business. We're hoping to do that. Great restaurant, and if you haven't been there, you should try it. He also has One World Pizza, am I right? Which just got awarded by Food and Wine, was it? One of the best pizza places in America.
All right.
go there. Hopefully I get a discount the next time I go. But anyway, so we don't know for sure, but we think that we can do on all these lots in a way that's not even, as Jay was just showing, not that super tall. And we'll go over on the side and look at it. Over 500 homes, maybe as many as 700 new homes for people. And out of those homes, what percentage will be affordable? We would like to think that we can make 200 affordable homes here, which will make I think a big dent in sort of what we need to do as a community in Hudson County. I mean, there's a lot more than that needed. Any other questions in the room here? Yes, please.
I am a city resident. I am an employee. So my main concern right now is the parking. If these
Yeah.
the lots that we have now don't accommodate, they don't accommodate what the employees here now.
Yeah.
We build up these homes. There's no parking. There's still no parking.
Yeah. Well, we are. Our goal is to accommodate parking for both, and we understand that a lot of employees do park here. But the thing is, we can accommodate parking. The idea of that is on a fraction of the footprint of the land with a vertical building, and so including even out in the back, there's land that there's nothing being done on. So, I hear what you're saying, and that is absolutely a consideration that we have to address, is making sure that there's adequate parking for employees here.
We could just add we have a parking consultant because your concern's a real
Yes.
one.
Yes.
And so we actually are going through and measuring exactly how many spaces are being used, how many more we have to create, how we're going to distribute them. So we are working with Desmond Parking, and I've worked with them for years. So they're literally studying exactly how many spaces are being utilized, when are their peak periods, when are there less. And so we think that there is an opportunity to actually even make the parking work better. And also there's even new ways they do parking structures where it takes you right to an empty space. It's so frustrating, like when you have to go around and around in your car to find a space. So the way we design the new parking structures, like it tells you right away, like there's 20 empty spaces over there. It lights it up. It shows you which one. So there are better, smarter ways we can do parking garages that make it less frustrating for people and optimize every space. So those are some of the things we're going to look at, because your concern's a real one and we have to design that into the solution.
Give us a question from the live feed.
Sure. The multiple individuals have asked, including Aaron Gobra and I am Queen Bee, are asking about the same thing regarding parking. I don't know if you're going to have an answer, but they're concerned about this business of employees being able to park. They're asking, will they be charged if there's a parking garage or something like that for parking?
Yeah, I don't think there's any determination about charging. I don't think that's something we've considered. But as Jay just said, we have one of the top-notch parking consultants probably in America who's working with Jay. They've worked together on other projects to provide parking. We hope that the experience for parking for employees will be better when this is over, not worse.
What else?
I have another question. I see the building, which I'm guessing.
One thing, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but if you could stand up and speak a little louder, that's folks in the live chat are asking.
Yeah, sure. So the building that you have is right next to which rather tall. It's blue.
Right?
There's a few, yeah. And it's just
That's the rectangle.
these are some concepts, yeah. We have a few different ones.
Is that what you're thinking for parking?
Oh, so the question was, and sorry, we should be repeating the question. So the question was, like, what's the difference between the gray and the blue? So actually, we're really just, no, and it really should be one color at this point. So we're just showing the lower base, but really all of it is going to be wrapped with housing. So there will be parking in the base, and that could be multiple levels of parking, which could be organized and structured like I was saying, so it's much easier to find a space. But the goal is also not just to have parking garages facing the street, so we would tend to wrap it. So for example, on Montgomery, Montgomery is really one of the most important streets in Jersey City. Like, I'd love to see retail there. I think it's very, very important to activate Montgomery. That's where you have some restaurants. That's where you have a little bit of retail. And so these are some of the questions we're going to be asking. What kind of retail would you like to see? Would you like to see restaurants? Would you like to see, community facilities. Would you like a supermarket? Does the neighborhood need a supermarket? So these are some of the questions. So it could be, for example, retail on Montgomery. It could be housing on some of the bases in the lower parts. And it could also be, other uses. So I think it's very important, though, that we're going to activate all the edges and try to find the right way to be good neighbors and actually face all the streets and engage the streets, which I think is really important. It could also be, and I'm not sure, speaking to you as a restaurateur, we were debating, do we do a little bit of retail on the squares? And it's tricky because, retail normally has to be, near other retail. But restaurants and things like that are terrific for drawing people, and restaurants tend to feed on each other. When you have several restaurants together, it tends to attract more traffic for each restaurant, which is interesting. You tend to get 1 + 1 = 3. So maybe it's possible there's some retail here, and maybe we try to get a little bit of restaurants or hospitality on these green spaces, because that really activates them and pulls people, might even pull people from Journal Square. So these are just some of the thoughts we have. And when we go over into the interactive part, when you all get to say things or write things down or put stickers, we hope you'll tell us what you think might make sense.
I'd like to welcome Councilwoman Little, just came in, and thanks for coming, Councilwoman. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm a resident of Section 2.
Sir, if you could stand and project on the
Section 2, and I'm concerned about the kids playing area. There's no area over there. So it's like 50, 60 kids just playing on the street.
You mean
Section 2, yeah.
well, you mean down here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the question was, the gentleman lives in Section 2, and he's saying that there are, children and they don't have enough places to play. Could I just ask you, where is Section 2? Because I don't know it by that.
I think he means the Colony neighborhood over here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the,
I see.
that's
Is it
the
also
area.
known as Section 2? I just didn't know that.
This
Okay. So thank you. So,
A lot of kids play there, but they have nowhere to play except the street, basically. Here.
well, one thing we could do, and I think if if the community is interested, I would love to create a playground. And to create playgrounds or sports, facilities or whatever the community tells us, depending on what you think would be appropriate, and different age children, like different activities. And I can tell you as an architect and a planner, I have designed many playgrounds and open spaces, and it's one of the most fun things you could do. By the way, I didn't introduce Kathy Chan. My partner is here, and Wo Wu, our senior designer. Wo just designed a 1-acre park that we're doing right now, actually in Queens, and we designed a beautiful playground for that, and it's going under construction now. So I'd be very excited. If that's something the community is interested in, those are the kind of things we can do. Where would it be? Well, I'm thinking, and again, it's pretty early, so we haven't really designed it yet, sir. But if we do these open spaces, like I kind of started, like here, or that other one, we could definitely put a playground in there. If everyone felt that was appropriate, that would definitely be a good location.
some space down there.
I like this. It's interactive. This is how it should be.
So that's interesting.
Basketball court.
So that I think you're talking about the piece of land over here that's owned by PSC&G.
Yes, and-
And in fact, I was just talking to my law team today about drilling down on the status of that property, because maybe we can get that in the mix to my friends at PSC&G.
And sir, were you thinking, so an extension of Wayne Street, right? Because that's Wayne Street where you were looking, right? So maybe we
What's
could
that?
extend that in.
What's that? Sorry.
So that would be interesting. You're saying the kids are maybe playing on Wayne Street? I was trying to follow that, but I wanted to understand that. So maybe extending that into an open space and creating a play area, that could be a great idea.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that with us and coming up.
Yes.
Can I ask you to stand?
Congestion, the traffic is horrible. After a certain time, the traffic is horrendous. It's horrendous. So you're inviting more traffic, cars. What about public transportation?
Yeah.
Are those that affect?
We speak
Let
up
me,
there?
yeah, I can start, Bill. Well, first of all, again, thank you for your question. So congestion is an interesting point. What we find is when you actually create more kind of mixed communities, where you have working spaces and housing spaces, it can actually help with congestion, or when you create congestion. When you create more pedestrian-oriented communities where it's easier to walk between different things, to walk to restaurants and shops, it cuts down on congestion. Now, it's not going to solve congestion or traffic completely. I don't think it will. But if we design the parking in the right ways, with the right entrances and exits, and if we create more housing, and it's actually even proven that when you have housing and commercial space, or like this building next to each other, the cars tend to use them, parking spaces tend to be occupied, and the congestion tends to be at different times. Like residential neighborhoods are busy at certain times, and commercial or community facilities like this are busy at the opposite times, weekdays versus weekends, daytime versus evenings or early morning. So it can actually help with congestion, but you do have to plan it properly and really look at it carefully. And we're hoping if we strike the right balance, that it really won't hurt. Now, Montgomery Street or some of the other major arterials, I guess that's your question. And part of that, too, is we have to do environmental studies as part of it. And we look carefully at timing of signals, and we work with the city in order to figure out how you get the best processional flow of traffic. And so there's a lot of thinking that has to go into a master plan. So we're going to try to take those things into account. But hopefully a balanced neighborhood and a community and a walkable community really helps address that, too.
We're going to go over to the side too. You guys have any questions before we go to the side? Go ahead.
Yeah, and you also mentioned there was going to be a walkway that's going to connect directly to Journal Square. Is that also part of the plan?
That's one of our ideas, and I personally kind of like that idea. And you can see this sort of green path. Now, we don't control the whole thing. For example, you see some towers up there at the top of the drawing, and that's not us. But that's a scheme that we know, and that's actually going through a public process right now, is being discussed. And we happen to know the people, because they shared their plans with us, were to create a pedestrian walkway there. And we would strongly encourage that. So we were thinking that we would create connections. So, for example, where you can see on Mill Street, or even up by Academy there. So creating additional connections that allow you to walk up into Journal Square, we thought would be helpful. So we're definitely supportive of that if people like it. Yes?
Councilwoman Little, yes.
I would actually, I love that idea, and I would actually also advocate for it to be a multi-use path, and maybe even put a city bike station at this site, because it's a little bit of a hike to Journal Square. So if you're commuting and the weather's nice, you may want to sleep in that extra 15 minutes and just take a bike instead. And if we could make it a multi-use path, I think that'd be even better. Because this is kind of in the area where it's like kind of a hike to Journal Square, kind of a hike to downtown. You technically walkable to both, but you're talking 20 minutes,
Yep.
So, yeah, I love that idea.
I think that's a great suggestion. So when we plan it, and our folks are taking notes, we can create walkways, and I'm an avid cyclist myself. I'm really into it. And you want to be careful because you want to, separate pedestrians and cyclists and yet have them go along similar paths. So we can look into that in the planning of it. So we really appreciate the suggestion. I also wanted to add, and I'm sorry, the lady before, there was one thing I forgot because you asked about mass transit too, and I didn't answer that, so I apologize. I can't speak for mass transit because, the city will determine that. But I can tell you that we've had a lot of luck in the other projects I've done and the other designs I've done, master plans, and we've built thousands of units of housing. A lot of times we can actually create something like the square or like a street, and we can actually use it to attract new mass transit, including like bus routes, changing bus routes, and that can really help too. And I'm sorry, I meant to mention that before, so I can't promise that. Like I'm not, I don't dictate how the Jersey City bus system works, although your elected officials can also help us with that, which is a great benefit. But a lot of times if we design the space right, and even design it so that it has like laybys for buses and bus stops, they'll accommodate us, and once we start to create more of a community here instead of an empty parking lot, we actually find that usually we can get a new bus route in and improve the public transit. So I just wanted to add that too, because I realized I forgot to answer your question on that.
Yeah, and I'll add just one thing to that, which is, there is one public bus that comes to County Plaza. Most of the developments, if not all of them, certainly the Beacon, have their own shuttles. So once we have a critical mass of population here, I don't want to jump ahead and commit the county to something, but I think that the Hudson County Improvement Authority would look to try to provide some sort of a transit mobility shuttle type of a situation to get people to downtown or to get Journal Square and things like that. You had a question over there? Stand up and...
Folks on Instagram.
One of the more ambitious and interesting things that
of a park on top of a parking structure. How is that accessible? Like, how do people get? If you were to do that, how would people get to it? Like, would they have to take an elevator there, or take the stairs, or is there like a way you can connect Montgomery itself to the park directly? Because Montgomery is like elevated is more elevated, so you can create a pedestrian path. Like, what are you thinking for accessibility?
So that's a great question, and you spoke so loudly, I'm sure everybody got that. But the question was, how do we deal with accessibility relative to multi-level spaces, including Montgomery, or putting the green area on the parking garage? So there is a significant grade change here where Mercer comes in to Florence. There's about a 20-foot grade change there. And so we haven't really developed it yet, but we were thinking that could help put parking underneath. But, well, first of all, the site's accessible from both sides because the public streets are on two different levels, so we can make it accessible. But second, when we do create parks and things like that, we would definitely want to create accessible paths to it too. So there probably would be elevators and things like that to tie into it. And frankly, we could even, because we haven't designed it yet, remember, but we could step that in gentle ways. There's beautiful examples of that. We could even use the topography a little bit. We can use that to really create a unique park in a sense of place. So we have some work to do on that. We haven't figured that all out yet, but we see that actually as an opportunity to do something that could be really nice. Accessibility, universal accessibility in public spaces is very important to us, and we'll definitely take that into account in all of our designs.
I have two more questions from the chat, both from I and Queen Bee. First one, what is the projected cost, and where will the revenue go from the rentals? And will this be a burden on the taxpayers?
Great question. So what's the cost? Is the thing?
Yeah.
Well,
overall cost.
Yeah.
If there's rental coming in, where does the revenue go? And is this going to be a burden on the taxpayers?
we don't have an exact cost right now, but it's not going to be an inexpensive endeavor. I mean, anytime you're building housing of this type of magnitude and this type of amenities, open space, it's going to be an expensive endeavor within the hundreds of millions of dollars. But we're looking at a couple different places that we think we can obtain assistance in that we have federal funding applications underway. We have other grants that that we believe we can leverage, and we're hoping to get some assistance in the form of tax credits that will help facilitate this. And at the end of the day, some of the financing will certainly come from county bonding. We are lucky that we have not lucky, the county has earned a strong bond rating. And as a consequence, when we borrow money in that capacity, the interest is something that we can withstand and bear. But unlike most public bonding endeavors, like for schools or for parks, you don't get any revenue back after you build a school, right? You actually give more revenue because you have to pay for teachers, you have to pay for programming. Here, and this goes to the second part of the question, we're going to be getting in rental revenue. So what's the rental revenue going to go to? The rental revenue will go to paying off that debt service. The rental revenue will go toward paying for the operation and maintenance of the building. And hopefully, if we do it right, we will ultimately have some excess rent revenue that we would then utilize to seed the next projects. So, yeah, that's the answer to that question.
Second question from I Am Queen Bee. There's a concern about the possibility that there's an underground stream under 257 or something like that. Mm-hmm. The stream kind of carries under the new courthouse buildings. Is that anything anyone's considered? This was in the chat.
No, but maybe we can make it an above ground stream. All right. I think we'll go and start taking some stuff on the side.
If you all would like, and I'll just answer briefly, we will take into account things like groundwater and environmental concerns. That's all part of a planning process, and it's very typical for us, and that can be actually, incorporated into the larger plan. So we're very careful to look at environmental factors. So as Bill said, rather than just hearing us talk at you, and if you guys have further questions, we'd love to have a conversation with you and hear more. And I'd encourage you to please come over and take a look at the drawings. And even we'll ask you to put some stickers or write some things down, because we've already gotten some great suggestions here, and I'd love to have the chance to chat more with you instead of standing up here and talking at you. Thank you very much, and we're going to continue. But if you guys want to check out some of the things over here, I would encourage everybody to join us.
Thank you. Come on over.
Thank you. The reason I'm asking is section 2 the name of the street or something? Or is it
Oh, nice. You're in the chat. I think we have met before a couple of times. Nice. Yeah, that's what I was asking. Like, if we could get like either, I know this whole area is like steep, it's on a slope.
Yeah, like I wonder also how the financing would work.
And not mention the elevator, you know, like
Are they just paying someone for the construction? Because isn't they letting someone else run it? Isn't they letting a private operator run it? Because that's how they're paying for it. It's just not they're paying for the cost and they're paying for it.
No matter how many times you tap.
Hard Rock. Yeah, show the comments. What's that? People kind of make I mean, like an open space kid, that's the next like
Alright. And that's what I was saying. You can just, yeah.